Dr. Raymond DuBois was named Dean of MUSC's College of Medicine last March. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with Dr. DuBois one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Dr. DuBois.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir. It's so good seeing you. You know, I heard a lot of good things about you. And you know, I want to take it back to a press release that I just read. And this was from December 11, 2015 at the MUSC put out. It's, and the headline reads this: DuBois named College of Medicine Dean. The Medical University of South Carolina MUSC Board of Trustees has approved the appointment of Raymond N. DuBois, MD, PhD, as the next Dean of the College of Medicine, COM. DuBois will assume his new role effective March 1st, 2016, and will have an academic appointment as professor in the COM, which also holding an appointment in the Hollins Cancer Center. Take me back to March 1st, 2016. Tell me what memories play in your mind.
Well, you know, that was my first day here at MUSC, so, you know, just getting to know the institution. Moved here from Arizona, so I had a lab group that was working with me at the Biodesign Institute in Arizona. But, you know, I really was impressed with MUSC. There's a very strong cancer center here, a very strong research base. The faculty are very dedicated to what they do. And, you know, we provide important health care for a section of the low country population that I think is the best in the country. So, you know, I think I was impressed and ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work.
From Arizona to MUSC, why MUSC in your mind?
Well, it's you know, it's one of those medical centers that's really up and coming, and it's really made a lot of progress over the last decade. So I felt like I could contribute to the continued success and you know, help recruit additional people here and build both the clinical and research and education missions.
And let me go back to that particular press release, that is, because Dr. David Cole, whom I interviewed twice for Quintin's Close-Up, says this quote: "The feedback from multiple MUSC consensus suites presented a consensuous view, that is, that DuBois has the unique balance of academic experience, demonstrated leadership skills, and the collaborative team building skills needed to lead the College of Medicine forward as we embrace exciting opportunities and challenges ahead." That has me thinking this: what is your definition of experience, leadership, and team building these days?
Yeah, well, the problems have become so complex in medicine, not only in the clinical enterprise, but also the research enterprise, that individuals have a hard time competing for the grants and having all the technology they need or infrastructure.
Right.
So we really have to form these teams that collaborate much more with each other, and the outside forces, you know, we're working on collaborations with Clemson and other places within the state of South Carolina to get the job done. So you can do more as a team and accelerate the progress than you can just focused on it as a sole individual working on the problem. And it's becoming more apparent as things get more complicated that teamwork is going to be the key to success.
I talked about your impressive background earlier, and I have to read this. It says this: DuBois received his BS and PhD degrees in biochemistry from the Texas A&M University and the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas, respectively. He received his MD degree from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio and completed his internship, residency, and fellowship training in gastroenterology at Johns Hopkins University Hospital. DuBois currently serves as an executive director of Biodesign Institute at Arizona State University at the time, which focuses on health solutions and biomedical science, through 14 research centers conducting broad-based interdisciplinary research. Prior to his appointment at Arizona State, DuBois was provost and executive vice president at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, overseeing all research, education, training, and faculty development, including collaborative agreements with more than 25 institutions globally. Prior to joining MD Anderson, DuBois was a professor at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in the departments of internal medicine and cancer biology, director of the Vanderbilt Integrams Cancer Center, and prior to that, chief of gastroenterology, hepatology, and nutrition. Wow! me back down memory lane because I want to know what led you to really researching cancer.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting story. You know, I came from a farming and ranching community in South Texas. So my hometown is called Runge, Texas, and population is 800. So it's really out in the rural area, and most people did some work that involved agriculture.
Yeah.
So that was what I did as well. And when I went to Texas A&M, I started off majoring in agricultural education. Because I had a scholarship from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Okay.
And the stipulation of the scholarship, you had to major in some field in agriculture. So I got interested in science and research and changed my major to biochemistry, which was lucky to be at Texas A&M because it's still in the College of Agriculture. And then I did a junior-senior honors research project and got more interested in research. Finished my major there in biochemistry and wanted to continue and got my PhD in Dallas at UT Southwestern. And during that time, I was working on the metabolism of drugs that cancer patients take, and really got excited about trying to develop a better understanding of the basis for cancer. And so that time was during my formative years, very important. And then I had to finished my medical school in the UT system and then went and did my clinical training at Hopkins. During that time, I was lucky to be able to work in a laboratory of a fantastic scientist, Dan Nathans. And we were in the process of cloning cancer genes and trying to understand what they did. So that really just kind of got me hooked in the cancer research field, and I continued that during my time at Vanderbilt and then beyond at MD Anderson for sure.
You came to MUSC at the right time because obviously now we have, which a lot of people are calling the popular Science Cafe.
Yes.
And you're actually speaking, I believe, on August 23rd.
That's correct.
What do you want to tell that audience?
Well, I have three major messages, and I was so excited that you were willing to come by today and talk about it. So my general area now has really focused on cancer prevention. As you know, an ounce of prevention is worth 20 pounds of cure, basically. Right. And if you look at the numbers, conservatively, about a third of all cancers can be prevented.
Yes.
Some people would say half of all cancers can be prevented, but it's harder to prove that number than the 1/3. So prevention overall is a very important topic, and one area for the amount of cost we can make such a big impact. So what I'm talking about can be divided into three areas. So just regular people in the population, they can increase their physical activity, change their diet. We know a Mediterranean diet is much healthier than a McDonald's diet, basically. And then avoid UV exposure for skin cancer, avoid exposure to things that we know cause cancer, like tobacco use and other environmental carcinogens. And overall, that clearly would decrease our overall risk in the population by a third. So that's hundreds of thousands of people that lives would be saved. We just haven't been very effective in getting all those messages to people who come to the health system, and public policy hasn't really supported that in the way that it should for a number of reasons. But I'm always on my soapbox trying to say, especially to younger individuals, and you can get vaccinated for hepatitis and for HPV and other things that we know cause cancer that can almost reduce your risk for those things to zero. So, and then there's another category of prevention for people who are much higher risk. So, there are health disparities, and some of the underrepresented minorities are at a higher risk for a number of reasons. We need to focus more on those groups and educate and let people know what they can do to decrease the risk. And then there's some people who actually inherit genes from their parents that give them a very, very high risk for cancer, and these are called inherited cancer syndromes. For those people, they can take drugs like aspirin and other things that will reduce their risk. There was a study done recently in the United Kingdom, people who have what we call Lynch syndrome, where they get colorectal cancer. There was about a 50% decrease in their cancer incidence when they took one aspirin tablet a day. So that in the United Kingdom is recommended for those patients now, and it's being adopted here, but much more slowly, I think, than in Europe. And then lastly, there's this new area that I call cancer interception. So it's like you intercept a pass before the receiver gets it. And in that area, we're trying to understand the biology of pre-malignant lesions. So you have lesions that occur on the skin, in the colon, and other places that are not cancer, but they're developing into cancer. We're trying to understand the biology of those so that we can stop them from progressing into a full-blown cancer. We're understanding better what the signaling pathways are that either accelerate or put the brake on their growth, so that we could intervene with specific approaches to do that cancer interception and then prevent that segment of individuals. And then the other area of interception is that when a tumor forms, it's usually localized to one organ, like the colon or kidney or whatever. And there's a time at which we could just keep it confined to that organ, prevent it from metastasizing to other parts of the body. And we're learning more about that and how to use the immune system to prevent that metastatic spread of disease. So, very exciting time. Lots of new information coming out all the time. But in these three areas, clearly an individual can do the first set by modulating their physical activity, their diet, avoiding exposures, making sure everybody gets vaccinated for things that are infectious causes of cancer. And then in the very high-risk people, like in the health disparity group and the genetic syndrome group, we need to give better information to those individuals to get screened properly and make sure they can pick it up as early as possible when it's much more treatable. And then the last group is really interception is a research area. Very excited about it. There's a lot of labs all over the country working on it, and hopefully within 5 to 10 years we'll have a better understanding of how to intercept cancer.
Obviously, we hear about this all the time. An apple a day can keep the doctor away. Now you're saying, hey, an aspirin a day can keep cancer away.
Right. In some cases, yeah. And it's a very cheap drug. It does have some side effects in some people. It can cause bleeding and other things. But if you give it in the right amount and with the right advice, it's something that can be managed.
You talk about 5 to 10 years. 2 questions. What is, I hate to ask this difficult question, but what is the future of cancer in your mind? And the other question, what is the future of cancer research when you think of it?
Well, the future of cancer is, it's a disease that's been around since, the dinosaurs were on the planet. I mean, dinosaurs had bone cancer, we know from some of the fossils. So it's something that has been present ever since organisms have been inhabiting the earth. So it's something we've got to live with. We're not going to be able to essentially stop, that process. But we are getting much better at treating it, for diagnosing it, picking it up early, and trying to prevent it as much as possible. So, I think we need to hit more strongly on the prevention side. New drugs are being developed that target genetic defects in cancer cells that work really well for some cases like leukemia, testicular cancer, and others. And they're being developed for other, more like pancreatic cancer that's not as responsive. One of the highlights then, one of the previous science cafes was on immunotherapy for cancer. There have been some really big wins in that area, especially for melanoma. And some of those patients like Jimmy Carter, who had melanoma in the brain, he got the immunotherapy and the melanoma went away because the immune system attacked those cells and destroyed the cells that were in the brain that were cancerous. So that is an area of tremendous excitement. There's probably about 10 to 15% of people that respond to it at some level, but there are a number of people that are resistant to it. So the next phase of research is going to be to try to understand what causes that resistance, how can we overcome the resistance so that we can turn the immune system back on to attack the cancer cell without affecting or damaging the body. And that is a very exciting area. We're learning a lot every day on that, and I think we're going to be able to overcome some of that resistance, even on the time frame of the next 5 years.
Well, Dr. Raymond DuBois, thank you for educating me.
Well, thanks for coming. This is important to get the word out. People, out there should know they can prevent cancer, and by the ways that I mentioned, and everybody doing their part, we could reduce cancer by 1/3, within the next decade.
You are
without any research.
Exactly. Yeah, thank God for that. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Appreciate
you.
this.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
Thank you.